Hi, this is Iris at the Polyform Design Center, and I'm here to show you how to do the Sutton Slice technique with Primo clay. Now let's get started. I have a texture sheet right here. I've secured it on a ceramic tile. I find it easy to work with, doesn't move around a lot. You can do this with any kind of texture sheet or a rubber stamp. Normally we use texture sheets and rubber stamps to put patterns in clay, and once we remove them we highlight the upper areas with metallic powders, or we antique the lower areas to get different effects. But today we're going to use the inner areas, the low areas, and fill them with clay, and then we're going to lift them off with another sheet of clay, so we have the exact design in clay and it's three-dimensional. Very cool. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of clay that's been well conditioned. I conditioned it in the clay conditioning machine. We're going to lay this piece of clay right over the design area. And I use my fingers for this technique. And it's very easy to see when the clay is into all the areas, right, like this. You could see it, but what I do is I go over it a few times just to make sure, because we want the clay all the way in. This technique takes a little bit of patience. It takes a little bit of practice. I've seen it demonstrated many times, and everyone has a little bit different take on how to do it. And this is the way that has been successful for me. One thing I do want to mention is you want to pick two colors that have a lot of contrast. It just makes the design pop out so much better. Okay, so I think this is in here pretty good. I'm going to take a clay blade and I'm going to trim up the edges a little bit. Okay, here's where the patience comes. We're going to slowly remove the layers of clay until the design starts to pop out. Now, don't panic if you see an area that wasn't filled with clay. You'll be able to fix that up as you go along. But this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the stamp to be showing through. I do want to mention another thing is do not spray the stamp with water. I know over and over again we tell you to use a release, but in this case we're not going to need it. Well, I have a whole area here where that didn't stick well. And another thing I want to tell you is that a lot of people have a problem when they put the clay down, it sticks to their finger. What I do, and I have very hot hands and clay usually sticks, is I kind of use a rolling action, rolling and smearing in this case, so the clay doesn't stick to my fingers. And that's going to be especially helpful when we lift the clay up and we make all our little repairs. Once you see the reveal on this, when we actually have the design, you'll realize that all of this work was worth it. Another thing you're going to want to remember is that you want to make sure that the rubber stamp is showing through the rubber texture plate. Whatever you're using, whatever color it is, you want to make sure that it's showing through, or else you'll have a little bit of clay in that area and your design won't show through well. Okay, so I'm going to take all of this off. I'm going to show you how to repair the areas where some of the clay is missing. Just going to take a little ball of clay from some of the clay that I trimmed off. Take that clay, flatten it out, and I'm going to put it right over that area. But do you see how I'm smearing it on? That's so that clay doesn't lift off, and it doesn't lift off any of the other clay. Okay, so once I have my repair work done, I'm going to remove the clay in that area. It's working out very well. Now some people sweep their blade over this. I try not to. The next thing I do is I take a sheet of clay. This sheet of clay is run on the number 2 of the clay conditioning machine, and I put it right over the area that I filled in. And then what I do is I flip it over and I push it down very well with my hands. And you'll notice I'm working on a tile, and I feel the tile holds the clay down so that when I lift the texture sheet off, the clay stays down. Okay. You could go over this with an acrylic roller if you'd like. You just want to make sure both clays are nice and soft and conditioned. Okay, here we go. And there you have your design. It really was worth all the effort.